8 days before she was killed, Luba posted this video. She shared lots of happy photos, but investigators say those were merely flashes. Luba had an order of protection and a charge of domestic violence against her husband. Investigators say she was far from safe, noting that Yodit Tewolde showed up Saturday morning, put his kids in the car. The former college wrestler tackled his wife as her sister ran for help.
The horrible violence, and he stabs her in the chest and in the stomach, knowing that she's carrying his baby.
Police say the 23-year-old then pregnant mother with 2 toddlers was stabbed 12 times. Physicians performed an emergency cesarean section to try to save the child, but that child died just moments after birth. Luba's husband charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. You will speak to her brother in just a moment. I'm back with Jenna. Joining us, Yodit Tewolde, former Dallas County prosecutor, presently criminal defense attorney, and on the phone, investigative reporter Victoria Taft. Victoria, this couple has just a problematic past. Tell me about that.
Well, they got married in 2010, and they were fairly young. Here was an 18-year-old girl who was marrying the star wrestler and honor student from arguably the finest Christian college in the United States. But then things got pretty bad. In 2012 and 2013, they had 2 years birthing babies, and they had 2 years of marriage before the kids came along. But then in 2014, when she had 2 small littles, as she called them, to take care of, that's when things got real dicey, and that's when the cops came in, and that's when it got really bad. 4 times in August of that year, she had problems and eventually filed for an order of protection, and one of the times in that month, Dr. Drew, was the fact that she had felt that by taking away her telephone, her identification, and her car keys, that he was trying to keep her from feeling supported. And in fact, she said, he took those things to keep me feeling alone, helpless, and scared. And then she later got the guts to file for divorce and then withdrew it the next year.
According to court documents, Yodit Tewolde was scheduled to go to trial next week for 2015 domestic assault. Law enforcement says despite their efforts, this woman continued to live with this man. Joining me now, Mark Garagos, criminal defense attorney. Mark, I know you're handicapped somewhat by what's going on from an auditory standpoint. I appreciate you trying to overcome the technical issues. Documented assaults, protective orders. What does it take to get somebody out of a domestic violence situation?
You know, it kind of reminds me when you talk about addiction and with substance abuse and things like that. At a certain point, you can do, or the people around you or in your orbit can do whatever they can do. But at a certain point, the person themselves has to want to. And if they don't want to, there's, you know, there's no amount of the criminal justice system, absent removing that person and giving them a no bail situation, that's going to solve the problem. And even then, you know, I can't tell you how many times I've seen, and you've seen, Drew, the spouse, whoever that may be, the battered person, just won't cooperate. And it's a fundamental problem, and you just can't, you know, sometimes the criminal justice system can't solve all ills.
Right, and Jenna, Mark's point is a great one. It's very much like addiction because somebody's thinking becomes adulterated by the very person who you're trying to extract them from. Just the way the drugs are affecting the drug addict, the relationship, this coercive, controlling relationship is what actually causes somebody not to be willing to leave.
Right. It's this interdependence probably between the two, Dr. Drew. There's something that she still got from that marriage that made her feel good. Now, you know, I think this is actually an opportunity to talk about domestic violence as a problem in this country, all over the world, in fact, that 1 in 4 women are reporting domestic violence in their lifetime, and that there is an opportunity to get help and shelter and remove yourself from this situation. This is not the first time we've talked about this.
No, not of course. It's terrible. These coercive relationships are terribly common. Now, I want to show you video from Luba's Facebook page. It shows the alleged killer as well as their 4-year-old son and 3-year-old daughter. Luba posted that video just 8 days before she and the unborn child were killed. Yodit, I'll let you ring in on this. These domestic violence situations are unfortunately altogether too common. How do we educate people? How do we get people to understand when they're in a coercive, controlling relationship that will end in trouble?
I mean, I don't know what we can say if these examples, these murders, aren't examples enough. I mean, like Mark said, it's so hard to prosecute a case when you have a victim who's unwilling to cooperate. As a former prosecutor, I went on very, very few cases without victims because I needed to go forward with people who were repeat offenders, but they knew how to manipulate the system and knew that if the victim didn't comply or didn't cooperate, then they were, scot-free. They went scot-free. But it bothers me that this woman had a protective order in place, and people assume that that's all that they need. I mean, what is she supposed to do? Throw a piece of paper at him when he comes at her? It's not enough.
Well,
it isn't.
But what we always look at is, the top 4 priorities in situations like this is get them separated, get the woman out of the home. On the phone, I have Alex Catane. He is Luba's brother. Alex, I am so sorry that this tragedy has befallen your family. It's breathtaking.
Thank you, thank you.
Were you aware of your brother-in-law's history of domestic violence?
You folks are talking about hashtag domestic violence and are creating an aura of cause around domestic violence. But asking me about warning signs about Eugene and concerning domestic violence doesn't scratch the surface at all. The problem is my brother-in-law didn't operate out of nowhere and become a murderer. These people are cultivated. They're raised by families. They're raised by friends. They're raised by churches. They're raised by their educational institutions. And they are chronic bullies from a very young age. I knew him. My friends knew him. My family knew him. And all along, the signs were there. And they start small, and they turn big, and this is what it comes down to.
Now, Alex, you are 100% right. 100% right.
So
and oftentimes,
please don't make this about domestic violence.
Well, but understand,
make it about raising
Alex,
appropriate human beings.
Well, I understand that, but it is the very appearance of being powerful that attracts people to these folks, and that powerful bully, whom which they believe is going to protect them, turns on them. That's what happens. Now, your sister was also there when this all happened. What was she exposed to?
My sister was a supporting, my sister was a family member that really supported Luba. Luba confided in her a great deal. She was over at the house many times in the mornings and the afternoons and the evenings helping out with the kids, and she happened to be there that morning. And we as a family are super, we're counting our blessings in terms of the fact that she's alive.
Yeah. And there's a GoFundMe page. Can you please tell me about that?
Luba was passionate about her children. She had a lot of passions, but her main focus was enriching the lives of her kids every single day. And our goal with the GoFundMe page is to raise funds to pay for her funeral expenses as we celebrate her life. And then also we're working on setting up different trust funds and accounts in order to accommodate the kids' short-term and long-term goals in terms of education and well-being.
Alex, we will look towards that GoFundMe page. I'm so sorry. I agree with what you're suggesting, that we must identify people early and not let this unfold, that it's upon all of us. I agree with you on that. I'm going to speak to a domestic violence survivor. She is here after the break with answers and insights. And still to come, George Zimmerman just cannot keep his mouth shut, this time lashing out at the parents of Trayvon Martin. Back up.